We're inside the Olive Meat Market, looking through the double doors at the back of a no smoking sign and no loitering. You can see the street kind of blurred behind it, and there's a car and a house across the street. And this is the location where a young man, 19, when he stepped on the other side of these doors, he was grabbed and used as a human shield and was killed in a drive-by shooting. My name's Deborah Luster, and I'm a photographer. We're looking at the exhibition Tooth for an Eye, a choreography of violence in Orleans Parish. This show is homicide sites in New Orleans, places where homicides have been committed. It's a view of New Orleans through that lens. It's also about seeing the city and parts of the city that you wouldn't normally see. It's the second half to a project that I did earlier called One Big Self, Prisoners of Louisiana. I documented in the Louisiana prisons for a number of years, and that project was in response to the homicide of my mother in 1988. You might look at one of these images and it looks pretty uninteresting or certainly not ominous, but then you read that someone was killed here and the text transforms the image. This is in Tremé. There was a man beaten to death here, and it's the really narrow way between two houses. You can see the rows of air conditioners in the window, the chain link fence extending back, and it looks kind of like a human spine to me. There's cat's claw climbing the wall and dangling down and blowing. It's just New Orleans. I started throwing all these lenses on this 8x10 camera, and one of the lenses formed a perfect circle. You see what the lens sees in its entirety. You walk up to the circle, and it almost feels like you're going to go head first into it. I thought, yes, this is it. This is the La Petite Motel. A young woman was found murdered in one of the motel rooms, and there's a broken mirror, and the bed is unmade. You can see the deadbolt on the door. The maid was across the street. She was glaring at me. She started walking toward me, and it was a 90-second exposure, so I just whirled it around, focused it, exposed it, hoped that she wasn't going to get there before the exposure was completed. I really like people to be able to touch work. I think it transforms work. Also, I'm very interested in the way that text transforms photography. What I have here are big, heavy ledgers that hold about 30 images each. This gives you the location, a date, and it gives you a name or names. A lot of times there are multiple dates and multiple names. This is the location where Adolph Grimes III was killed in front of his grandmother's house. A whole group of plainclothes policemen shot him 14 times, 12 times in the back. His grandmother told me that his car was parked right where my camera was, and as I was taking this shot, there's a bush there, and the bush started moving in the wind, and the exposure is very slow, so it's kind of like a spirit for me. We got married on this porch that overlooks North Villeray Street between Arts and Music. There were 4 boys killed on the street. Thinking of Julia Reed's quote, "Living in New Orleans is not unlike living in the Old Testament." I wanted there to be the sense that it's not about the individual place, it's about the cumulative power of these acts. It's difficult to absorb that. So I thought if you could look at a large number of them on a wall, that it would sort of enter you. That's why I decided to do this.